T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, guys, another week. Happy to have you. We're doing Colubrids again without Junior, but like always, we miss him. Before we get rolling, got to talk US ARC. Anything we can do. We got some big shows coming up. We're going to hear about some great auction stories very shortly. Pomona, right around the corner, man. Looking forward to it. I will be there. But let's get this rolling. Let's jump right into it. So, got our guest today, buddy. Want to appreciate you coming on, honestly. I've been talking. I think we met at a was it an Indiana show or Illinois show?
It's probably our Davenport show.
Davenport, yeah. So
yeah. I think that's the first time that we actually met. I knew you forever, but yeah.
Yeah, no. So first off, I think the Pyros on your table really got my attention. Plus, I always do like a nice corn snake, but Pyros are something I've been like drooling over for years, and I never pulled the trigger. I ended up buying a couple specials, male, very reduced, like no black pigment, females from the special clutches, a lot more black pigment to them.
Nice.
So I got a couple, but I'm going to need some more. But all right, let's get this rolling, man. So on your logo, you've been established since 1994 as a company. Am I right?
That is right.
All right. So prior to that, what was the exposure to get you in? Like, what started this all?
Well, I mean, you got to go way back. I was born with the reptile amphibian gene when I was a kid. Just came out of the womb. And that stuff just interested me from the get-go. I can't explain why. It just is. Other than that, I was like everyone else, too. I couldn't have snakes in the house or anything like that forever until I moved out. And actually joined the Army. Got out of the Army in 91. And that's when I started keeping snakes and stuff.
Okay, that's tight.
Yeah.
Was there a breeder that kind of got your feet wet? Showed you the ropes?
Believe it or not, the first show we ever went to, the only show that was around was Lee Watson's show.
Yeah. And
it was Brian and Lori Barczyk and Mark Bell. And let's see, Ron or the Bullfile was there.
Okay.
But for sure, Barczyk and Bell, my first snakes came from them.
That's really cool. Were those Colubrids?
They were. Actually, my very first pair I think I ever bought was some Southern Pines from Brian.
Like that.
And then I got Cal Kings from Mark Bell. Right. And then from that point forward, just on and on and on and on.
So when I say this, I mean this in the best way. So Cal Kings, I always have an itch to buy a lot of Colubrids. And at the very end of the season, when I haven't spent any money left, there's so many Cal Kings left, I'm tempted, but then I'm always like, there seems to be way too many of these still floating around the market. How is that?
Yeah, it's slow. I was talking with someone else, and everyone kind of thinks because Europe closed with Cal Kings. I don't think you can keep Cal Kings in England anymore. I'm not sure about France or any of the other places too, because they're all too worried about them being invasive.
Yeah.
So apparently they all came back to the States or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought too.
Is there a country where they have become invasive?
I think there is a population in England established, and I think I heard Greece as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, snake eaters, I'm sure that could fuck up whatever the native wildlife is, so I can see the concern. But well, how about this? I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the species. So a lot of mutations, and if you're not paying attention, there's actually quite a few different looks you can get a Cal King in.
Oh yeah.
Breeding pretty easy? You get a lot of females eating males. Like, what's that like?
You know what? This is the first year I picked up a pair of polymer ghosts from Josh.
Okay.
And I really loved the male. Wasn't too keen on the female, but he gave me a hell of a deal. And that chick turned around and ate my original polymer ghost. And she was the first one. I'll put them together. Keep an eye on them, of course. And you'll get some biting here and some biting there. Then then pretty soon they figure out what they're supposed to be doing. They leave each other alone, lock up, and then I get it done and I separate them. And this was the first one ever. I left her for 20 minutes and had to run in the house for something and came back out and he's halfway down her. And I'm like,
okay.
Crap, man. I'm like, but other than that, I mean, I've had them together forever. You just got to watch them.
Just got to watch.
That whole Getula complex, all those common kings, I don't trust them.
Is there anything that anyone has ever, I mean, I understand if you feed them a little more, that could prevent that to happening. But like, I hear of some people have actually kept them together for a long time and it takes that one moment. What do you think that's all about?
Yeah, it has something to do with that, I think. I mean, I usually, I like to feed, of course, when it's springtime, I like to feed my males or my females heavy. Mm-hmm. So then I'll wait usually about a day and then pair them up. And usually, like I said, up to this point, I've never had a problem in the entire time with one completely killing off the other one.
Okay, tight. You can double clutch that species, no problem, right?
Oh yeah, yep.
All right, what's your average clutch size?
Usually about 6 or 8.
6 to 8. That's what I figured.
Yep. A big clutch would be 10.
All right. All right. A lot of basic questions, I know. Sometimes I like to ask some real simple things to get it rolling.
No, that works.
Yeah. So corn snakes, man. So corn snakes kind of has been your forte since the 90s.
Yeah, I think it's probably 90. Actually, I didn't get in until probably like 96, probably.
Okay. Was that?
I was doing Do what?
Oh, was that mutation driven, or did you just start with some locality stuff?
Well, back then, let's see, there was only aneries, hypos, albinos, of course. I forget if Tessera was there yet or not, but that was about it.
Okay. Were there more hybridization stuff going on back then, and then it kind of faded away? Because I remember the early days, I'd see a lot of that stuff on the table.
Right. You had the creamsicles and the root beers and whatnot. Because back in the day, everyone thought that the Great Plains rat snakes were just northern version of the corn snakes and had no problem or no issues, breeding them together.
Candy cane is a pure corn, right?
What's that?
Is the candy cane pure? Or was the candy cane?
Yes. Nope. Candy cane, that's a line bred trait. You're just working for something that's really, really white.
Okay. Interesting. What kind of projects are you working with? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that candy cane, it's just an A male. It's just a really, really high white A male or albino. Okay. Line bred for that.
I didn't know that. I've always liked them. I saw a lot of them back in like the early 2000s. I still see them today, but actually they're more rare today than they were back then, I feel.
But yeah. Good ones are for sure.
Yeah. How about this? Tell me a little bit about your collection now, like some things that you're focusing on, like, things that are keeping you interested.
I've got about 50 females at all times, corn snakes at least. And I work with a lot of, it was funny, someone asked me what my favorite morph was, and I was like, well, I really like Castani and like Miami stuff and cinders and stuff like that, but I got to look around and like 80% of my collection is Sunkissed.
Yeah.
Or het Sunkissed. And I was like, well, I guess I love Sunkissed. But yeah, Sunkissed plays a really big role in a lot of stuff I like to mess with. I really like their head patterns. I kind of equivalent it to like, they remind me of like clown ball pythons. You get a crazy head stamp, you get some crazy side patterning going on.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that. The orchid project is one that always fascinated me. I remember when it first came out, I was really obsessed about it. I messaged the guy overseas. He didn't really seem too interested in shipping any over. That was probably maybe around like 2010, maybe 2014, somewhere in between there. Sun-kissed is one of the ingredients in making the orchids.
It is sun-kissed and lavender.
Okay. Yeah, that I remember when I first blown away. Still to this day, one of my favorites, definitely in my top 5.
Oh yeah.
But
They're really cool, and then they even get better looking if you can get some red factor in there. It brings out adds a lot of red to it, and brings out a lot more pink, and makes that purple really pop then too.
Okay, I have these albinos that I got from JMG Reptiles years ago. I don't know if I ever got a really good explanation of why they look the way they do, but essentially they start out not like completely normal albinos. I mean, you can tell there's something there. But then, like, once they hit adulthood, they're just solid red animals with, like, barely any pattern showing through. You ever seen anything like that?
I wonder if they're anything related to, like, the red Zeps and stuff that Tony D produces, and could be.
I'll find us a picture.
Those things get really, really red.
No. What about the, so the Cinder is a different line of anearthristic. Not compatible. Right. Has anybody just done like Cinder snow projects or gone that route, or is it kind of like a waste of time?
No, let's see, what's the Cinder snows? I forget that guy's a crazy dumb name. It's like the candy floss is what that's called.
Candy floss.
Yeah. So that would be an anearthristic Cinder and then amel on top.
All right. So it's 2 forms of anearthristic in the same animal. You can pick up on both.
Yep.
Right.
There's a slight difference. Yep.
Hey, I bred one of my vanishing patterns. What did I was? I don't know if I went anery to it. I know I made triple hets, and I was like, I do something stupid at that point, and I held them all back. I thought I was going to regret it because I was kind of wondering about putting 2 different lines of anery together. If I'd be like guessing what I had when it came to breeding, but hopefully pretty obvious.
No, you're going to be doing a lot of guessing. Holding them up together and looking at stuff. I was shooting for all 3 of the anearthristics. I was shooting for anery, cinder, and charcoal all together. And I started down that, and I was like, "Oh, that was a bad idea."
Yeah, I can see that, man. So it was actually salmon snow, a vanishing pattern of salmon snow I bred with my cinder animals. That was a couple years ago, so that stuff's coming up now. You know, we were talking house snakes last week. For a little bit, and you know, she was talking about viability with her females. How it was 4 good production years after you raise them for about 3 years. How do you find that with your corn snakes? Do you age your corn snakes out over time?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm always. It's just the name of the game. You get to a point, you got to start moving stuff out, making room for the projects and the animals that I've held back coming up.
Okay.
So usually about, I don't know, I think I got one in here now. It's maybe 12 years, but she's on the list to go this year. But usually about 6 or 8 years, I'm moving them out, making room for the other ones.
Okay. Is it a rude question? How many corn snakes do you keep in your breeding colony? Do you have like a certain number you like to keep it at, or are you always expanding?
My females, I've always got at least about 50.
Good number.
Males are anywhere from 10 to 20, and then holdbacks. I don't know. Last year I held back, I think it was 52.
Well, okay.
And then a lot of those I watch grow up and see who I really want to keep and who is worth working and whatnot. And then the rest of them, about halfway through, I'll move them out.
I think I've never really kept a big collection. It's probably about the size of yours when it comes to just kind of corn snakes. And the last 3 years, I've hardly held anything back. So I'm kind of at that point now. I'm like, I either need to hold a lot of animals back this year or consider maybe going after some new projects. I've been kind of doing the same like 5 things over and over again for about 7 years now.
Right.
So I don't know exactly which route. I got a lot of palmettos already. I wasn't gifted, but I was wholesaled like a huge group of het females like 6 years ago for like normal prices. So I've been hitting palmettos doing a head-to-head. I have rotated males in now. I was talking about that eyeball gene. No guarantee, because I've heard a lot of different things. I'm going to talk to Tim Bailey about it too. Tim's been keeping his eggs like on the floor, I want to say, in his reptile room to incubate them. And he does that, and he said that he noticed less eye bulging with his female or with his males and his palmettos. When my old room I used to keep them in, it was just my baby room for just everything. And honestly, it would fluctuate from like 76 to 80 because it was just a library in the house.
Right.
So that year, I actually had maybe one or two eye bulging problems with my palmettos. But the year beforehand, I felt like I had a lot using the exact same stock. Have you heard of anything like keeping them a little cooler during incubation and try to get away from that?
No, I haven't. I know everyone's usually trying to cross them out, and always, starting with a new male or something like that, and making hets and starting that way. I know Glenn's really, Glenn Brooks is really into that.
Yeah, I saw his post about that. I can't remember what line of corn. I don't know if he used an Okati or what he used when he crossed out, but he specified where the animal was.
Right.
Yeah.
The stuff I have, I'm doing pretty good. I don't get too many. I get an occasional bug-eyed, and I'm one I don't like them. So they generally go to the Cal Kings.
Okay. I'm not opposed to putting a thing like that on the table, but usually I just put it at like a pet price. So if I got a male of bulging, it probably goes out for like $50. And honestly, usually it's the first thing that sells. It's usually to a female that walks in the door, and they're more than happy to take it home. I do understand the whole calling, things like that. I don't think that will necessarily ever make it back into breeding. Plus, I don't know if there's any guarantee that ones with eye bulging are producing more eye bulged animals. I think it's really you want unrelated stock over anything.
Right. That's what I think too. Trying to think, this is like probably the 5th year I've had palmettos. And like I said, I haven't had any real issues. I mean, literally out of like 2 or 3 clutches, maybe 1 or 2 animals.
Right.
And that's it. And that's by my standards. They're, I've seen pictures of like horrible looking ones and stuff like that. And I've never had any like that ever.
All right. So the front of my building right now in the new place is actually holding around 82 because it's actually running the air conditioner a good bit right now. I thought about dialing that a little bit, but I do have those eggs for the first round on top of those racks at 82 in that room. So I'm going to kind of see what happens there if I notice any eye bulging, but I'm probably going to take my second clutches of the year, and I'm probably going to maybe try to find a cooler spot in the building, or to be honest, I might have to bring them home away from the building because, again, with all the pythons and boas and like the mixture of species, I have my Australian stuff up front. I'm going to have to find a new spot for the Colubrids next year because right now it's just not going to work, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I take it you keep your room temp in the mid 70s for them in a hot spot, low 80s.
Mine, I just got ambient. I got 2 snake rooms in my garage, and literally they run during the warm months anywhere from 75 to 82, and then that fluctuates throughout the day.
Well, that's fair. Trying to think. What do you think about that It's a melanistic project that popped up in corn snakes I've been seeing. Is that overseas?
That black diamonds?
Black diamonds, yeah. Have those made it over here yet, or?
I don't think they've made it over here yet. I have not heard, or if someone has, they're not saying anything yet.
Okay. Do you think something like that will be a hit in the community, or do you think it's?
I think that'll be a hit because everyone's always asking, "Are there any black corn snakes? Are there any black corn snakes? Are there any black corn snakes?"
Yeah. Can't get
other than anneries and cinders and charcoals, I mean that's about it.
Okay.
You can get some really dark ones of those too, though, but
nothing solid. There hasn't been like that combo we found where you mix enough shit together, it just makes a black snake. It's not like ball pythons.
Nope, not yet.
Not yet. That's fair. I'm on a lot of the snake ID groups, and the one thing that I think in all the years of looking, I've never seen anybody post like a mutation of a corn snake in the wild. Or maybe I just missed the day it was up. It's been a long time since there's been anything newly discovered out of the wild other than palmetto.
Palmettos, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like over a decade ago.
Yep. I want to say that was 2010.
2010. Okay. I wouldn't say that corn snakes have like limited populations. In certain parts of Florida, you see a lot of them. I don't know the collecting restrictions in the United States. Like, I know you can probably collect in certain states. It's not really worth just collecting wild caught stuff. But if a mutation popped up, I'm sure it's going to go home with somebody.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would think so too. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but I don't know. I'm not up on all the other laws and stuff either.
Same. I went out to Kansas herping about 2 weeks ago, and first thing we saw was this really nice garter with a nice orange stripe down its back, and I'm like on my stomach taking pictures, and a warden pulled up. And apparently, in the state of Kansas, you can't flip a rock without a hunting license. You can't pick up a snake without a hunting license. He was really nice about it, don't get me wrong, but it was more like, if there's a car coming, you want to remove it. Yes, use your hook to get to the side, but without the permit or the license, you're not supposed to touch shit in that state.
Oh my God.
I thought that was fascinating. That might be new to people. I just watched a herping video on YouTube yesterday of a guy in Kansas flipping stuff all over the place.
Oh yeah. Noah
Okay.
was just up there.
That's it. Yeah, I think he in that episode where they flipped that board when it got started.
Yeah.
So
with all the ring necks.
Yeah, that's my buddy's son's house. I've flipped that board before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool to see that. I can hear his voice in the background. I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if they name dropped him in the episode, but very knowledgeable guy. He put me on the one Kansas spot I just did, and we ran to like I think we saw like 12 bull snakes pretty early in the day.
Nice.
Tons of garters and racers. They were fast though. It started heating up there really quick. And then as the day progressed a little later, we started seeing Massasaugas come out. And we saw, I think we saw about 4 Massasaugas overall, to be honest with you. One of it was like, it wasn't quite a neonate. It was probably a year or two old, but for that, it was still like a small enough snake. I put a penny next to it to show how small it was.
Yeah.
But, pretty exciting trip. I like Kansas, but man, as soon as it gets past like 83 degrees, you really don't see a whole lot on the roads anymore.
Yep.
No.
I used to live in Erie, Kansas, down the southeast corner.
Okay.
I've never seen so many black rat snakes in my life.
Yeah. Well,
they were everywhere.
Missouri, crazy variety. We always see a lot. Quantity of species. Kansas, I want to say I've probably seen maybe like 8 to 10 species in the snakes. I'd have to look back at some pictures. We added a speckled king to this past trip. We did a spot the second day, and it didn't quite warm up enough. So my buddy was looking in this like drainage ditch with some rocks in it, and it was a nice female just kind of sitting on top of the rocks. So that was a neat one because prior to that, we saw probably the biggest Massasauga I've ever seen, but it was a fresh roadkill.
Oh.
Yeah, that was day 2. Still saw one live one that day. It got up to 90 pretty early, so it was pretty much done before we started. But saw some garters, diamond water snakes. Saw a big breeding ball of diamond water snakes. There was this little dam area and a bunch of like sticks and weeds kind of built up. And on top there was like 3 big females, and you just saw males come in from the distance. They would get there, realize there was already too many boys on her, and they'd take off in the other direction. So probably the coolest thing about day 2. But you were showing off some box turtles the other day and hognose.
Yep.
Can I ask the state? Am I allowed to at least?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's public ground. It's Aries. What's that place called? Aries Sand Prairie. It's up by Thompson, Illinois. It's about a 60-acre plot that they've restored into. It's always been it's always been a sand prairie, but there used to be some houses and stuff on it a long time ago. But
so you don't imagine it's automatic that when you go there, you always have a chance at a Western. That was more just right place, right time.
That was, yes, absolutely right place, right time. Like I said, I posted that video, and I said 10 plus years, and it was 20 plus years for me to finally find one there.
Wow.
The turtles are always there. You can go up there and find them turtles. that was just happened. I found 17 that day, and that was just a prime time to find them. It was like about 70, 75 and overcast. So they were out running around all over the place.
Yeah.
If the sun's up, you can find them, but you got to look like underneath the bushes and stuff like that, and they're just not moving as much.
Okay.
But yeah, that hognose, that was the first hognose snake I found there, and it had been over 20 years.
Yeah. I've been probably going to the spot in Missouri, the only spot you can find them in the southeast. And I've walked that place probably, I guess not as many. I probably put 6 times over the last 6 years. Have never seen one. Every year in the herping group, you always see somebody post the one they find there, but never been fortunate enough.
Right.
Junior wants to do like a little hit up Illinois, hit a couple spots, go to Missouri, hit the spot hard, then go up to Iowa and hit a couple spots hard and see if we can find one. I saw Kaufman just posted one up in Minnesota. Thought that was pretty cool. But no, that's definitely one on the bucket list. But I've tried Colorado where I've road cruised for them. I think the place I road cruised was where the first het leucistics were collected, I was told.
Yeah, heard that too.
First time you've ever seen a hognose in the wild?
Western.
Yeah.
I found eastern south of me down in Big River State Park and stuff down there.
Do you ever go down the Snake Road?
You know what? I've never been there.
Yeah,
I just never made it.
So I think we missed our window for the record, or you missed your window, and this is why I say we went there. I think it was after the Tinley show. It was probably the October show, and there were so many cars there. There was like parking along the side of the road. There was probably 200 people walking back and forth on that road. It's not that I hate people. I don't really want to share that with people. You know, I want to be out there finding stuff. I don't want to like run over to a group of guys over one animal.
I hear you.
So I'm not going to say don't go because I'll be honest, there's no easier herping than Snake Road. But, man, it's like a tourist attraction now.
Right.
Yeah. But,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you get out for a couple herping trips every year, or is it kind of like focusing more on the animals in life, don't really get out that much?
Yeah, I'm lucky to get out 5 or 7 times a year. I think I've been out 4 times this year. I make up for it, though. I got a bunch of stuff in my backyard. I just throw back out there, and I get done in the snake room, run out there and take a look.
Yeah, I did that on my old property. Mike Schultz laid a bunch of tin down, some old boards.
Right.
I haven't done that at the new property. My feed store guy just redid his metal roofs, and they threw all that shit on the side. He's just going to let it rot there. But I think I'm going to take the trailer, probably grab like 50, 60 pieces, and not tell my current landlord I'm laying down tin all over the yard. But, you know, you probably heard me talk about how I'm lucky enough that my neighbor about 150 yards away, 300 yards away is an old employee of Bob Applegate. And,
nice.
yeah, so he's already been, when he heard that we like snakes, he came knocking on our door. But he's already been flipping the garbage and things behind our properties looking for stuff. He also rents from my landlord. My landlord hates snakes. He made it really clear, don't fucking bring any snakes to this house. Like, we got a shop in town. Snake-free environment for him here. But I'm going to put a bunch of tin down and not tell him and attract a bunch of new snakes to the property. But,
awesome.
So, what project are you hyped about right now with corn snakes? Something you've been working on for a while that is just progressing?
Yeah, I ended up, they'll be ready to breed next year, hopefully. I put a patternless shatter, so a patternless cinder sun-kissed to a mandarin, which is a Castani A-male, and I ended up with these wicked cool-looking animals. And even if they don't produce what they can produce and just make copies of themselves, I'm good.
Okay. Is that,
but if they do produce, I'm looking at like 4 or 5 different world's firsts in that clutch.
So I feel like there's still a lot to do with corn snakes. And other than a few people, I feel like they haven't really been like a big focus other than people finding ways to mass produce them, but, you know, doing the same thing that we've done for years.
Right.
Here's the problem with corn snakes. I like corn snakes. I have my group because I love JMG's collection. I thought what Senior did was amazing. Always really loved looking at it when I was over there. I always told him if he ever sold it, I wanted it. He finally sold it. I took it all. But I've never really added a lot of new genes other than getting palmetto. And when I look at crosses to do, I'm worried I'm going to do something stupid, like think I'm doing something different, crossing something in excitement, and then I finally make it, and I find out it was made in like 2002.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah. So you would think there'd be a lot more like 5, 6, 7 gene crosses in corn snakes. Like, do you see that, or people kind of avoid that because I deem?
Yeah. I try to avoid it too. It's kind of like ball pythons, in my opinion, too. You get too many genes in there, and it just washes everything out.
Okay.
That, and then like when I start new projects, I like to get animals with the least amount of genes and start that way and start building.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, because you go to start IDing these things, and it's crazy. I got to end up holding on to animals for almost to a year sometimes, figuring out what they are.
Yeah.
Seeing how they're going to color up.
Hypo pops up a lot in my stuff, and I hear hypo pops up in a lot of guys' stuff. And diffused popped up in my stuff randomly. I didn't really know what the hell was going on for a minute.
Right. I pretty much tell everybody I'd almost guarantee every single corn snake out there, probably about 90% is at least going to be het albino or amel.
Sure.
It's just all those older genes are in everything.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, hypo. That's an older gene. I get a lot of hypo. Just crops up. Anery, same thing.
Yeah, I think when Vince said he first bought his like het palmetto stuff, he said, "Is it anything else in there?" They told him no, and then hypo started popping out. And it's not like he wasn't thrilled about that, but he kind of wanted to know what he was working with, I guess.
Right. That's all I am too. I mean, that's why less is best with me.
I suppose that's fair. Clubrid Fest. I was talking about your shirt before we got going. I missed it last year. Yeah. I wasn't reluctant to go. First off, I had nothing to sell. It would have been just to hang out. Yeah, that's Donovan did that logo, I believe, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So I heard the first one went off great. I heard all the vendors had a great time together. I heard it was a nice little party. And I did hear this time around it's going to be in a better venue that's going to be a little more convenient for everybody.
Yes. Last year was in downtown Indy. And just right off the bat, that was the absolute best time I'd had in a long, long time. And don't get me wrong. I love Tinley. I love Schaumburg. I love all the NRABC shows. I love all the reptile shows that comes down to it. But that show, yeah, it was something special. Absolutely something special. We went in. It's a 3-day event. Friday is set up and then meet and greet after the fact, so you can run around, talk to everyone that you talk to on Facebook and you haven't seen before, and talk about that. Saturday is all nothing but talks, which really reminded me of the old herp symposiums that used to go on. You have about 2 or 3 talks and a break, then 2 or 3 talks, lunch, and then everyone splits out for dinner and whatnot, and then they have a auction at night for conservation efforts with Dr. Lohman and stuff. And then Saturday's the sale, Sunday's the sale, excuse me. And it's only on Sunday. And it's funny because everyone was asking me, I ended up taking 200 animals to the first show. My wife's like, what are we doing? I'm like, it's Colubrids Fest, for crying out loud. I got to take all this stuff. And I did not expect, or did I care if I sold a single animal. Yeah. I was going there. I figured it'd just be us breeders trading and buying off of one another. And it wasn't. I had first time people buying snakes. Yeah, it was just something great.
Oh, like
I said, it was in Indianapolis, and that was kind of it worked, but it was kind of a pain because parking was anywhere from $25 to $55. Yeah, and you had to park sompla. But still,
going on that weekend too. I heard that was a little
downtown. Yep. Right after they first announced it, I was like, huh, That's right during football season. I wondered. I checked. I was like, sure as hell, there's a game going on. And we actually ended up getting people into the show from the game. Dad went off to the game. Mom and the kids were left to go fend for themselves, so they went to the reptile show.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm always concerned, when I'm like, because there's always, if you wanted to pick a show to do every weekend, there's probably 5 options if you're willing to drive 5 to 6 miles in any direction. So, like,
Right.
I'm always looking at events going on in town, especially sporting events, anything that I think is going to stop people from going out. I was like, when they first showed me that date, I did check the football schedule, and I can't remember. I don't know if they played the Texans that weekend or what the game was, but
Steelers.
Steelers, that's it. I'm sorry, Steelers. And I was like, man, that could be a tough one. I was like, that could literally leave a sour taste in people's mouths for the first experience at this show,
That's what I kind of thought too, and it didn't.
Good.
We had a little. We got out after the show closed. Of course, when the show got done, the game got done, and we made a mad dash, and we made it out just in the nick of time. But we were actually planning on just kind of hanging out the show till whenever, until the game all cleared out. But it didn't work out that way. But yeah, and as far as sales on that day, that was my second biggest one-day sales ever at that show. It was, yeah. It was great.
That was not even so much vendors buying from vendors. I'm sure vendors did buy from vendors, but it was a lot of general public coming in to get in their first animal or just an animal in general.
There was. I could not, yeah, and that really floored me. I sold I think 4 snakes to first-time snake people.
Like that. I've always thought that the Indianapolis area is good for shows. You've had the Brian Hahn show there forever. And I think that's a monthly. And Scott's show is more like Chicago. That's a good ways away from there, right?
Right.
But I think I did a Fort Wayne, I want to say it was the Show Me. And I didn't really have high expectations. It ended up being probably one of the busiest one-day shows I've ever been to.
That's what I've always heard of too. Yep.
Yeah, and it's amazing the flow of the people because usually when people come to the show, they get scattered, they go in every direction. They came in a single file line and did the entire perimeter. Even if someone had to stand in front of my table for 6 minutes to walk 4 feet, they would do it. And because of that, it actually kind of helped sales, but also everybody on their first pass wasn't really inclined to buy. Like they really wanted to see the show. So unless it was like something I had they knew they couldn't get somewhere else, I will say I did probably lose customers just because it took too long to get back to my section of the building. But overall, I thought it was amazing. Like I said, I don't go, when I lived in Buffalo, I like going to the Southeast so much that I kind of continued that trend as an adult. There's a lot of good shows between like Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio that I just haven't done in like a decade. I got to start maybe pushing east a little more and northeast again. But Daytona, you ever do Daytona back in the day?
I have not. In fact, I've never been to Daytona.
Okay. It's beautiful there. It's quite the experience. Yeah. I'm just saying I would probably go to at least one Daytona. When MJ came out to Daytona the first time, even he was like, holy fuck, this is like no other show I've ever been to. Everybody's happy. Everybody's just like laughing. You're on the beach. Daytona's like my happy place. You probably hear me talk about it. I really love Daytona.
Right.
I would never want to live there, but I love the show so much.
I got a bunch of people that want me to come down there and visit.
Yeah.
So it's on the bucket list. We'll make it down there eventually.
Please.
But no, I haven't.
Colubrids Fest. Did you shout out the dates for that? That was in September.
The September 12th through the 14th.
Okay. Did you guys move into a bigger facility this time? Are there going to be even more vendors coming out from the buzz of the first one?
There is going to be more vendors.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's bigger. I know it's more economical for Mickey as well.
Yeah. That's good. Well, yeah, I'm sure anything in downtown Indianapolis probably isn't cheap. Not that
right.
Isn't cheap, but I'm sure because I think he's having it in a hotel, right?
I forget.
Okay.
I think it's a convention hall. War Memorial Convention Hall.
Okay.
I think that sounds familiar.
Okay, cool. And I'm sure there's probably a sponsored hotel for that weekend where everyone's gonna be hanging out, like hopefully.
There is. We're not staying at that one though.
Sure.
We actually found a hotel that's closer. And let me look that date up really quick and that place real quick
Yeah, no,
while
of
I'm here.
course. Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
having that many people in that place at the same time again for that species, I'm like 99% sure I'm coming unless something catastrophic happens leading up to it. I don't think I'll
right.
come, but man, I just kind of want to walk around and have the conversations.
Yeah, and that's all I expected from that first show too, and that's all I wanted, and that's what I mean. It was more and beyond. It really was. And talking about Daytona, it's funny. We had a few guys who are regulars at Daytona, and they were like, "If I got to do one big show a year, it's going to be Colubrids. I'll miss Daytona."
Interesting.
And that was the other thing too. It was like, besides those that people that came in for their first time snakes or something like that, everyone knew what they were looking at.
Okay.
I mean, it was like, oh yeah, it was. And the funny thing about it, I forget how many vendors there were, but I didn't even make it around to everyone's table. I mean, I was just that busy, and then you had to look at everything. If you're a Colubrid person, it's just like, some of the bigger shows, Tiddly and stuff. If you're not into the ball pythons, you can bypass aisle and aisle, and then jump for looking for your Colubrid, and there you just couldn't because everything was a Colubrid.
I think with me with Tinley, every ball python at Tinley I probably saw online that week or the week prior, so there's not going to be really a surprise. But like you said, Colubrids, sometimes the blood python stuff. I'm always kind of scanning for a different shape that isn't a ball python, I guess is the way to put it in. If I see shapes a little different, I like to pull over for at least a second. I never put the time in like I used to. I'm trying to be more disciplined on not spending money on snakes anymore. And to do that, I literally don't walk shows because I don't have the ability to walk a show and not buy something. It's just kind of impossible. But I still, if there's something, I think it last Tinley, we got some Angolans because a guy a couple tables down had Angolans, so close enough for me to notice and stare at all weekend. So went home with those. Prior to that, man, I think it's been a minute since I bought anything. Have you gone after any new species the last couple of years?
New stuff? Well, house snakes, I guess. I got a small army here now.
I like that. Again, another species I've been fascinated with for a long time. What projects did you go after?
I got some Ugandan greens. And then as far as the capes and stuff, I got some blue-eyed and some hypo, T negative, T positive.
A little this, little that.
And I think that's it.
Okay. I meant to watch what is it? Reach Out did an auction, I think Palm Street about a week ago. I think he was talking like 100 snakes in an hour. Did you happen to watch that?
Yeah, I was on there for a little bit. Yep.
I was in this. I don't want to sound like an asshole. I wanted to watch it because I was hoping for some really good deals on some house snakes, and maybe like that would make me pull the trigger. How did that go, man? In your opinion, like, did things go for enough money? Was it like one after another really cheap? Like, how did that roll?
No, Garrett's a salesman, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He got his money's worth on pretty much all of those snakes.
Social media presence helps out a lot with that kind of thing. I don't know if me and you could jump in just willy-nilly and be like, hey, everybody who doesn't follow us, meet me at this place and let's see what happens. Most of the auction I've heard, things have gone kind of cheap, but I guess, when it's not a ball python, it's doing a little bit better.
Yeah, I heard someone else was on there trying to sell some ball pythons and ended up not selling, a single one.
Yeah. Here's the thing. There's always been ball python haters. And when it comes to like pet community, I've really noticed since COVID that like the pet community is really diversified. Like they're going after all kinds of cool stuff. Like they're trying to like, I'm getting more questions about doom roll boas now than I ever have before.
Right.
And I'm too late to start collecting doom rolls at this point. Because by the time if I went out and got some, they probably wouldn't be popular again. They're probably just peaking right now. But
Right.
yeah, COVID brought a lot of cool new people in that like went after more weird stuff. And you know, Colubrids, I feel like have always been pretty steady in the industry. I know there was some days where like the big wholesalers really like driving prices down, and I think back in the day I heard of like $5 to $7 corn snakes by the 100 lots and stuff like that.
Yep.
Kind of defeating to put all that work in when someone's willing to sell you the animal for that much. Makes it hard for me to work with some of my lower end ball python projects for that reason.
Right.
But Colubrids, man, like, you know, I always talk about the stuff that's like lost in time, the things that just completely vanished and like never really came back again. You know, Colubrids have always, again, been very fascinating and very steady, but at the same time, stagnant in the combos. Not to sound rude, but like sometimes it is the same $200 snake or $100 snake made a million times.
Right. I hear you.
But
I see that too.
yeah, the Pyro stuff, man. Give me some tips. You've been producing them for a little while, right?
About 6 years, I guess.
Okay. Any beginner shit I should know about, like to not mess these guys up? I'm treating them like most Colubrids right now.
You're good there. When they hatch, don't worry about them not eating for a while.
Okay.
Don't sweat it.
What's the wild?
Mine, I usually, they're usually hatching August. I tried to hold them off this year a little bit longer so they'd go later in the year. Because normally what I do is wait them out and and throw them in the fridge for about a month and a half.
Okay.
And then bring them out there, and then that jump starts them a lot of times.
I was going to ask you about a cool down because I know a lot of Clubber guys, rubber boa guys, like they're born. If they're giving you any trouble, pop them in cooling for a little bit, bring them back out, start the process.
Yep. Done that several times.
Okay.
Several times.
I'm only at like a 1.2 in that group, but I know when I was kind of like looking around, I found a looked like a younger gentleman that worked with him. He did some YouTube videos. There were a lot more mutations. I want to say like aneries. Do you know about all the mutations in that species?
I don't know all the mutations, but I know there's you got Applegate albinos, which is more like a hypo. There's another hypo, and there's albino. I've got those too. I got a holdback male that happens to be a high bino, and yeah, he looks like a candy cane. He's literally red and white, and that's it.
I want to say Brian Carter, BC, might have made something like that. I was looking at his table. I guess it was a rarity to make them. He got a pair of hets from somebody, and the guy said they didn't prove out. They were past sets he bred together, and then he put them together. He said the first baby out of the egg, I think it was a hypo albino. And
Yeah.
he had it on his table. I don't think he really wanted to sell it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just posted that guy here on Instagram a while back. Yeah, he was like, "Yep, you're sticking around for sure."
I remember seeing that picture on your page. I was kind of looking it over. I usually stalk a little harder. I figured I'd wing it a little more, which maybe is a little unprofessional, but you know, I figured we'd be fine. I didn't have to study every little aspect of your life. But so you said you got out of breeding for a little while there, right?
I did. We tell everyone we got out of breeding snakes and bred kids.
Okay. Okay. How many years before you got back in? Like, what was your time off looking like? You missed like the mid 2000s, right?
Yeah, I want to say it was 2005 to like 2014, 13.
Okay. You missed some roller coasters of years back then. I don't know if it was
Oh, yeah. We missed the whole ball python craze, bud. Whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's still a little bit of a craze, man. I still hear people selling them and people buying them, and I don't think that's
yeah.
You know, I think the biggest hurting that the community really has is new people coming in. There was such a surge of new blood that you know, they really did well, like for about 3-4 years there, but I always tell people in ball pythons, you got to expect a 5-year swing of good and a 5-year swing of bad.
Yeah.
5 years of people making signs until we're bored with something. We all decide the new direction. It takes us 5 years before we really start making stuff to sell. And even like everything right now in balls is going triple recessive. And it's really cool when somebody finally makes that triple recessive visual. But now it's like, cool, now I need to see 6 codoms in it. And that's the next like 5 years of developing that project to get to that point where people start buying again what they don't have.
Right.
But like I said, the ball pythons, it's really weird, man. I defend them a lot. My biggest problem with them is I never see a project through to the end. I've done some hets that I've made. I've done this and that. It's very rare I take a project from A to B, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way of putting it. Like I finally just proved out an import recently. And it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's not the craziest thing you've ever seen. I'll send you the pictures afterwards. But it's one of the few times I didn't like just sell the shit before I proved it out.
Right.
Ben had a project called Hydra, and I sold a lot of them very willy-nilly for years. And then I found out that they could be worth like $5,000 or $6,000 if I just would have made a clown combo of them. And I just got them making like bananas and banana calicos that treated them like normals. So like I said, I'm a bad ball python manager. I try to teach people from my mistakes.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I've got some corn. I've got some corns like that too. It's just like, oh man, whatever.
Yeah.
And then people show you pictures of them and stuff, and it's like pouring salt in the wound then too.
Exactly. The one thing too that I think, there's a lot of things I like about Colubrids, but like, the fact that I could do milks, kings, corns, like I could be rats, and I can go all across in all these different looks, bowls, so on and so forth. Like you can have a very diverse collection in a building with very similar settings. And like when I used to go to like Brian Barczyk's place back when it was like peaking, and you go in his Colubrid room and God knows how many breeders he had, and every rack had like clutch after clutch after clutch sitting on top. Like that was a great time, man. I'll be honest. Like, did you ever get to go to Brian's back in the day?
No, I have not. Nope.
All right. Coolest thing about walking in there, first thing is like right when you walked in the back, there was a drawer that had a Crebo in it. And man, that was an awesome snake. That was like the first time I really got to interact with one of those. And then, like I said, the Colubrid room was just insanity. Like, never, like, it's really, like, early in the hobby, I saw that and I was like, I want that. Like, I want to be this big. And then when I got bigger, I was like, man, I've got too many animals. Like, I really got to dial this back. Like, I'm making most of my money this year off of 8 litters of bows, and I've got like 1,000 animals in my collection. So, like, I'm doing things very, very wrong. And I got a lot of grow out stuff, but like, hopefully in the next 6 months, I try harder is the best way of putting it. And if I get rid of enough, I'll probably rebuy into some stuff. I just don't know where to go yet. But like I said, I think right now I'm very Colubrid motivated. 100 Colubrid sounds really nice. Maybe like 2.2 of everything. All my favorite stuff, I guess is the way of putting it.
Right.
So I'm always all over the place. So what state did you start breeding in? Was it Illinois or was it Kansas?
Nope, I've always been in Illinois.
Always been Illinois. Okay.
Yep.
So did you make it out to some of the first Tinleys then, or was that something you started going on later?
Later. Yep. Yeah. Probably my first Tinley was probably that first year we got back into breeding. So 2013, 14.
Okay. You've never done hognose, or have you worked with hognose?
No, our hog noses, we got to have permits. We had one. We used to do a lot of school talks and stuff like that, and I always had native animals so we could show everybody. So we had a Western hog with a permit for that. Otherwise, that was it. Otherwise, no, I don't work with them at all.
Forgot about that. Do the tricolors fall into that category? Tricolors wouldn't apply, right?
Yeah, your tricolors, you're good. In Illinois, you're good to go with your tricolors, and you're good to go, believe it or not, with your mad hogs too.
Interesting. Have you ever thought about doing tries? I find them attractive. The shutting them down thing.
Yes, I've thought about it. Thought about the mad hogs too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you. It's like if it's a colubrid, I want it, so I gotta rein in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and like the zombies, like I always talk about the zombie gopher. The first time I saw that, I was blown away. Really wanted to have it. I always talk about the white-sided speckled king snake project, another one.
Oh yeah,
species, really love that one. Caleb Bell, somebody at some point, I think when Junior gets back in, we probably want to talk to, but I don't know if she does podcasts.
Kayla.
Yeah, have you seen her on one?
Kayla Martin.
Is it Caleb Bell? Is who I'm thinking. What is that? King of or Queen of Kings? Florida company. If you don't know, you don't know.
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. I don't know. I have not seen her on a podcast.
I think
I know who you're talking about.
Few people in the United States that did any of those speckled king projects. Again, lost in time. The bull snake thing. You ever worked with bulls, or that's another permanent animal in your state?
Permanent, yep, permanent animal there too.
Have you ever seen wild bull snakes in your state?
Illinois, I have not, and Iowa, I've seen one live one and one DOR.
Okay, there's a county that's got a reasonable sized collection of bulls in Illinois, right?
Yep, Kankakee.
Okay. That's another species that's kind of really cool to see in the wild, just because the size.
Right.
The first one I ever saw in Wisconsin was probably the biggest one I think I've ever seen to date, and it was pretty fucking amazing. Like,
right.
I grew up in Madison. I don't really compute snakes that size because I spent my entire childhood in the woods trying to catch snakes, and I did find some cool stuff, but like never found a bull snake. And I mean, I busted my ass as a kid. A lot of decays, a lot of garters, a lot of water snakes. I found a garter out in the snow one time. Like, we got like really hot in Wisconsin, and then it snowed like in the spring, and it was like literally going over my snow in my backyard. It had like a nipped off tail. I brought it inside. I think I kept it for probably like a month, let it go again. I used to have a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. I always had a lot of aquariums in my house growing up in Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah. But
that DOR bull snake I found in Iowa that one time, that thing was pushing 6.5 feet.
Yeah.
That was a big snake. And then the other one I saw crossing the road by the time I got to it, it was gone.
Okay.
So that was the extent of that. And then where I found that last hognose snake at, that's the last thing I'm looking for in that sand prairie up there is a bull snake. There absolutely has to be one there somewhere. I know they are.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I still have not seen a bull snake in the state of Missouri. Like I said, Kansas, Wisconsin. I think Kansas and Wisconsin. Oh, Oklahoma. I think outside of OKC, I got a spot I like to cruise. I think I'm going to be out there again in like June. But it's like horned lizards, Massasaugas, prairie kings, some really nice like checker garters with this like beautiful green. Like some of the nicer green ones I think I've seen. But yeah, pretty chill little spot. I dig it. My excuse to herp is why I take a lot of these trips to a lot of shows I go to. The Oklahoma City show is very inconsistent because I think there's enough shows in that area, and the buyer pool is not as big as I thought it would be. Having like Bob Clark and like Wilbanks in that town, you'd think there would like be a bigger reptile community, but the show turnout's decent. It's enough to get me to go back because I love this road I cruise so much.
Right.
In Stillwater, we went to Stillwater looking for bull snakes in general. We didn't see a single bull snake in Stillwater. But you ever use excuses to go to a show, maybe do a little herping on the side, or you more like a nice dinner when you're done, lay down for a bit?
Usually dinner and done.
That's fair. That's fair.
Unless we're staying for a while.
Yeah. I go hard until I know someday I won't go hard. But right now, I'm still very ambitious. I'm sure the day is going to come where I'm probably just going to want to like have a nice dinner and not like drive around in my car to 3 a.m, then sleep in my car because I can't justify a hotel room for 3 hours of sleep. Many people have seen me shower in sinks at shows. But so
do it. I said do it until you can't do it no more.
Yeah, the back feels like shit, but not that shitty. It should be worse. And usually I herp so hard in the springtime I lose a bunch of weight. That didn't happen this year. I actually gained weight because I was buying so much garbage in between driving And
Right.
when one buddy came out, instead of us just spending like 3 days in the woods and sleeping in the car, we were sleeping in a hotel every night. We were having like a nice dinner. And I'm used to like starving myself for like a week and losing all that winter weight. But actually having to like discipline myself now. It sucks. But so, Clubber Fest, who's your favorite vendor? You got a favorite person? I've always been Zirkles. I like going to the
Zirkles.
Yeah.
I got to watch myself around Zirkles, Rob's table, and Rob and Amy's table all the time. I actually did pick up a San Diego gopher from them at the last one.
Very cool.
Yep,
Did the Stripe project come from San Diego?
The what?
Stripe gophers. Is that a San Diego or?
Yep.
Okay, I thought so.
There's stripes in San Diego's. There's stripes in Pacifics, and there's stripes in desert or oh crap, desert colas, whatever those are. I forget the common name for those now.
Okay.
Yep. I got a striped here. Then he's had Applegate albino too.
That's tight. I've always wanted to do another podcast with Bob. He's invited me to his home. I really want to sit him down for another conversation. I don't know. You ever get to watch that one I did with him? It was probably like 4 years ago, I want to say.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah. That's what we were talking about at the show. Yeah. You were working with the Herp House Rocks.
Yeah.
The Herp House Rocks. Yeah. We were sitting in the car outside the bowling alley.
Oh yeah, that was the only place the internet worked, man. That was my thing. I honestly kind of missed the bowling alley. It's still like 30 minutes away. I just I think last time I was out there, the cops called on me, and that doesn't really stop me from doing things. But clearly it's not like the good old days, and I am a little scarier than back then. Last night, at least be just that handlebar mustache. Weird, man, I look homeless now and drunk all the time. So I can't just be hanging out in abandoned bowling alleys like I used to.
Now it's funny you was mentioning Bob. Bob, he doesn't know me from Adam, but he was actually my mentor back in the day.
Yeah.
He was like one of the first guys. This is all way before the internet. I remember calling him out in California when it was like, I don't know, $1 a minute, or whatnot, because I had an egg-bound Cal King. He told me what to do, like in 2 minutes, and we sat there and talked snakes for another 2 hours.
Love that.
And then as another, I don't know, probably 6-7 months after that, I ended up calling him again. Same deal.
I've always, whenever I call the old school guys and they're willing to talk to me, I'm always like surprised because I remember being like a peasant in the hobby and like being kind of afraid to talk to people in the hobby, to be honest with you, way back in the day. So, all these things that I admire that are willing to have these like conversations, really one of my favorite things about it.
Yep.
You know what? We'll have to talk about this afterwards, but maybe we should get with the show and see if we should fly Bob Applegate out for Colubrids Fest. Put him out to talk. I'm sure if we take care of his accommodations, he'd be willing to come out for the weekend. I don't think he'd do it on his own dime.
Right.
We should maybe start a GoFundMe, or do you know 5 people? What do you think? $100, 5 people enough? How much does it cost to get an old guy to cross country?
We'll put it out there and see what happens. That'd be awesome.
We'll talk to Mickey and Clint, buddy. They got deep pockets. We'll make them pay for it. How about that? Yeah, I might see Mickey tomorrow. I'm going to talk to him about this. But
I think
it'd be great to get a Bob out, man. I think I saw him a couple Pomonos ago, and that was still
right.
Man, that was probably maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago last time I saw him. I put my arm around him when he wasn't watching and took pictures from across the room. It was great. I think I still have the pictures. But it's I love the old school guys, man. But very dangerous conversations. We talked about that. That was
I know.
Heavily edited, buddy. But that's fine. He's not inappropriate. He's just who he is, man. But yeah, it's a different time now. You gotta be careful. I always joke around, you don't want to get peak called.
Right.
But so have you ever thought about only focusing on maybe like a group of Applegate stuff? Like when you go after projects, if you can get something Applegate lined, you go out of your way to do so?
I've got Applegate Pyros. I've got Applegate San Diego's. And absolutely.
I know all that stuff's still out there. I kind of want to like I said, I'm gonna every time I get rid of 5 ball pythons, I feel like I could buy like 10 colubrids. Like I think that's fair because that's probably the equivalent in money, which is the best thing about colubrids. I really do want to like go after all the old school Bob Applegate stuff. Like just go back,
Right.
study his work back in the 90s and 2000s, make a list, and just see if I can even find it anymore. Like I said, I'm always all over with colubrids, and as many as I have, it's really just it's not enough. They're just so fucking easy. You know, the feeding process is easy. The shit stuff, man. I don't know about you, but like I do my cleanup with a shop vac. Like I know a lot of old school guys used to do that, but I'm sanding chips and shop vacuuming, and we can knock them all out in about 30 minutes, 40 minutes as a team. But we got to do it like every other day. Like it is
Right.
always just disgusting. Probably one of the biggest downsides about that species is when they're awake, you got to work twice as hard as most other species you work with.
Oh yeah.
But
Yep. And the prices don't reflect that either, unfortunately.
no, they really don't. And like I said, that's what really blew me away when you heard about the guys back in the day that would do like $5 corn snakes. Like I just don't even know if that $50 clutch was even worth having that animal around all year. It makes you question everything.
Yeah.
I don't pay the bills. I don't know for sure, but to me that just seems kind of crazy. Leopard geckos did the same thing back then. I think leopard geckos got really cheap.
Yep.
But,
We used to do leopard geckos way back when too.
Okay.
We wholesaled all those all the time.
Yeah. Well, prolific, easy. They shit in the corner all the time, which is easy.
Yeah.
You know, Cryptosporidium, of course, the only thing that's really got to be stressed on. Like I've heard of like very large collections that had to put down hundreds of geckos just because you don't get ahead of that problem.
Right.
And you know, not a lot of people even know about that. But I think a lot of that's cleaned up in the industry. You don't hear about those talks as much as you used to.
Right.
Talking diseases or talking about viruses and bacteria scare you? We can stay away from that stuff.
No, to be truthful, we lost all of our boas back in the late 90s, probably 98, 99.
The IBD era?
Probably. I had some mites come in, and then it just gone.
Well, IBD is not non-existent, but it definitely isn't talked about as much as it used to be. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. Either animals have them, maybe they live with it better now than they used to. Like I said, I believe the science, but if you talk about the science in the boa community, they say the science is shit. So like it's really kind of a tug of war there with like good information. Elliot Jacobson, as you know, is the one guy who did like all the studies on that at Florida State. I wouldn't mind having a conversation with him, but again, I've heard a lot of jokes that he diagnosed everything with IBD, even if it wasn't IBD. And corn snakes, man, other than Cryptosporidium, something too that can pop up in a corn snake collection, right?
Yeah.
Are there any signs with an animal that you see with that lets you know?
Usually they get like a lump in them. It looks like they had a meal and you didn't feed them.
Interesting.
And then usually that's followed by a regurg, and then it's just downhill from there.
Is that like swelling in an organ or any?
Yeah, because I don't know what organ. I'm not that versed into it, but yeah, that's what it is. It's the swelling of has to be in the stomach somewhere, or the intestine somewhere.
Yeah, it makes sense. It being a bacteria, I'm sure that's where the buildup would be. But going into buying them, there's really nothing you can do. Like that's always, like I said, a lot of people when they get into a species, they learn about all this stuff last, and a lot of times when people go to learn about it, it's because they find out the hard way.
Oh yeah.
Any warnings you'd put on anything when it comes to picking up any kind of colubrid other than the obvious? It looks bad, don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, and even that's tough with a lot of new people because a lot of people are looking at the price, and even on like Morph Market and stuff, it's just like there's a lot of pet stores and flippers and stuff on there, and it's just like, man, you don't know where them animals are coming from.
Yeah.
Then you go on Facebook or something like that, and everyone's like, "What morph is this? What's?" It's like, buy from a reputable breeder.
I feel the same
best
way.
you can.
If you can, and the problem is too is sometimes in these hobbies you get these very big name guys, and it doesn't always necessarily mean reputable breeder. It just means you have a very good presence online, or it's represented a
Right,
certain
right,
way. I never throw anybody in the bus. I never use names in a podcast. I'm not even leading up to using someone's name right now because I don't know shit about shit.
right.
Yeah, like I said, it's because even like I always like buy Hondurans. You ever do anything with Hondurans?
Yeah, I've tried those twice. I don't like them.
What's your pros and cons of them?
They're too spazzy for me. I've got Andines right now, and that's about the only ones I like. I think I'd like blacks too, but no, I've tried Hondos twice, and
Just
yeah, I don't know what it is about them. I love all snakes, but I don't like those guys.
a little too flighty. I mean, it is a flighty species. I'll be honest; they are spastic. I don't think I've ever met a calm Honduran until they're just like so overweight and so big that they really just stop moving.
Yeah.
But no, I've got a couple animals from that group. I got like a 1.3 that I rotate. We thought we started rotating early this year, but our first one slugged out on us, which sucked. It was like 4 really big long slugs, but yeah, one other female's grab it. I think we're still rotating the other one. I think we might feed up the one and try for a second clutch and just see what happens. This is the first year breeding them. I don't think we got the male in too late. I can't guarantee the male got a lock. Sometimes with the corn snakes put them together, we watch for the locks separate. Sometimes we leave them together for a day, which, I don't know about you, but I've always heard that corn snakes will breed themselves out if you leave them with one female too long. Like they'll just keep breeding her over and over again, and then you really can't rotate her through other girls. Am I right?
I haven't had any issues with that.
Okay.
I usually, I try to limit one male per 4. Is what I usually shoot for, and then I usually leave them in there for 1 or 2 days at least.
Okay. If we don't get a confirmed lock, a lot of times we'll do it overnight, and then we'll just take them out. There are some times like when we're traveling and stuff, leaving them for a couple days. But when I first started working with them, I was always told you don't want to leave them together too long. You don't want the male to breed himself out again on one female. But that was just not bad advice. That was just the advice I got coming in the game.
Right. I haven't had any issues with it.
Okay. Do you get your corn snakes big, or do you kind of keep them at a reasonable size?
I've got some small males.
Okay. Small with age, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. The males are usually going 18 to 24 months.
That's right here. What about your females, though? You get a female to go younger than a male, right?
I've had females go at 2 years old.
Okay.
And less than 200 grams. I found that out accidentally.
Put a couple animals together that were not supposed to be the same sex.
Yeah.
Yep,
absolutely. I used to raise up a lot of my holdbacks in small groups, like 4, and make sure that I thought they were the separate sexes. Well, then one day when you're cleaning, it's like that feels like an egg there. And sure as shit, you palpate it and you got eggs.
Okay. You hear about this a lot, in all honesty. I've heard this across different species of people that they thought were the same sex, and all of a sudden they got a clutch or a litter. Like, it's not really an uncommon thing. I don't cohabitate a lot of animals. A lot of times I've always kept everything very separate. I have thought about maybe doing some communal groups and certain things over the years, but until I get into like more bioactive stuff, I've always kind of kept everything in their own individual containers. But that's just me. I don't know why. The feeding part. I was
the feeding part. You hardly cohab anything, and I've cohabbed about everything.
Okay. Well, everything. If it works, it works. We all have our own little.
Right. Well, like you were saying, when it comes down to the feeding part, that's a bit challenging because you're separating everything out. And
yeah. Not a fan. So are you like one of those old school guys that like has a bunch of sandwich containers you put a baby in and stack them up on rack systems? You got little cubby
That's
holes.
exactly how I do it. Yep.
Right.
Entree containers.
You got a little like PVC pipe in the middle you did a trick cut with, so there's like a little water dish in there, or
I take the sample deli cups.
yeah.
I glue one of those down and then use an extra one to fill that up with. So then if they dirty in it and it's too dirty to rinse out or anything, I just toss it and put a new one in.
It's the one thing I've always tried not to be stubborn about is when it comes to disposable water dishes, I throw a lot of them out.
Yeah.
I could probably use them a little longer than I do, in all honesty. I could probably wipe them out one last time, but like, I call a lot of the places like the main distributors or the place that do like custom prints on them, so on and so forth. And a lot of times they'll happily give you misprinted cups or defective cups just so they don't have to pay the recycling fee. So,
right.
Multiple occasions I go into a place and, man, I got like 10,000 12-ounce cups with like some like stoner ice cream place logo on there that got messed up for free. That was beautiful. I was just fucking throwing it out every couple of days. But yeah, if you got any big distributors near you or anything like that, do it at a bigger scale, let them know if they ever have anything that needs to be recycled or thrown away and they just want someone to pick it up. You may end up with some free deli cups. Suggestion. I don't know how much you like free shit. I'm always really cheap about this. I want as much free shit as possible.
Heck yeah.
But I don't know, man. Tell me some more stuff, like just your experiences in the hobby, little things that have always stood out to you, certain times you've had you just enjoyed, other than Colubrids Fest.
Oh, I tell you what, I mean, I love going to shows. I don't care if it's a small show, little show, or whatnot. And then I love the kids that come into the shows.
Yeah.
Heck of a lot. I mean, I know a lot of people gripe and stuff because you got to get snakes out for a little kid to hold or something. And I love it. I mean, that's just part of it to me. And it always has been.
Yep. Same.
Yeah.
Always enjoy it. Like I said, I remember being that excited little kid. I've been a reptile guy since I knew there was a reptile. Like,
right.
Always that stuff. So, I get an excitement out of it. And, we talked, Trumbauer mentioned just like, kids he would like do something for, and then 20 years later would come out to the shows and just like remember that experience. And
right.
I was saying that like I've been in the hobby long enough now that I'm starting to get like young 20-year-olds coming over and saying, hey, I remember when I was 10, you let me do this, or I held that. And I really love that, man. I love the whole hands-on thing. There's a little library in my town, like right around the corner. And I've been thinking about going in there and just offering some times, maybe once a month or once every few months, where I can just kind of go in, and if they want to invite some kids in, like do some hands-on, do some skinks in, just kind of have some fun. Haven't done it yet. I got to stop talking about doing things and not doing them. That's something that, if you remember this, ask me if I'm doing shit at libraries next time we talk.
Okay.
Like the fire again. I just got to, I also don't want to creep them out. Like,
I know. It's touchy subject there.
Yeah. I don't think the beard is scary, but I do think that it's intimidating. And I will say that the shirts I wear with little cats on them soften the overall look to make me more approachable. But I still don't really think when a guy like me walks into a place and offers to like do anything reptile related, I'm not just feeling like some kind of stereotype in someone's head.
We've thought about doing like our local farmers market, like renting, renting a space out just for that.
Yeah. I thought about that at the art shows in Buffalo, New York, because they have some really wonderful art festivals there.
Yeah.
And I always thought it'd be nice because, at this point, this is my art. I thought it'd be cool
to
maybe set up some snakes, but like, I'm sure there'd be like some activists there. It might not be the right community to show up with like a bunch of little snakes for sale. I don't even know if you can legally sell snakes on the street at an art festival. But I always thought, but yeah, the education side, I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to encourage myself to do more because I really have not done as much as I should have. Like, I've had fun. The hobby's been great, but like, I've done the breeding thing. I kind of want to start branching out and stop being like a one-trick pony, I guess is the way of putting it.
I hear you.
But how old are your kids now?
28, 26, and 18.
Are any of them reptile keepers?
No.
Yeah.
They're all animal lovers. They're all animal lovers. My middle one, I could coax him into it probably.
Yeah,
but no one's got the bug as much as I do, or their mom, or my wife, because she's just as much into it as I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I've had this conversation recently, and I'm always more surprised that you don't see more second generation kids coming up. I think even when we were talking to like Quebeca, I was like, so what kid's going to take over the business? And I think he kind of put it like they don't really love it like I love it,
Right.
Which is weird to me because if I was a kid and my parents loved it, man, with those
I know, right?
Yeah, was absolutely adored it. And I always would have assumed that, like, with the energy put off by the parent, that the kids would again just want that. And as hard as the work is, man, like, it's a nice flex when you come home from a good show. Like, every once in a while, and you have that unbelievable weekend. There's nothing else you can really do as a hobby that you can make money in like you can in reptiles.
Right.
There's other hobbies, I'm sure. But for me, I don't know anything else in life I could do to make this kind of money. Because again, I'm not qualified for shit. I know this for a fact. But I've found ways to always make it work in the hobby. Whether it's products for the hobby, but breeding animals, there's always been an avenue for me. If I didn't have this, I don't even know where I'd start to fill out job applications, man. Probably some
I hear you.
Stamping something out. Like I don't even know what I'd be. But so what kind of jobs have you done on the side over the years?
My last one, I worked at FedEx ground for 7.5 years.
Okay, that's a nice job. I got a few customers that work for FedEx. FedEx seems to be good. I know during the pandemic, my driver was a little frustrated the raises weren't better because the workload was up there and the money, they gave me like a really small percentage raise, I heard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was insane crazy.
Yeah. Was that when you were working with them?
Yep, I was there for that.
Sorry. I don't know if
what'd they call it? Essential. We were essential workers.
Yeah. Well, you were essential, man, because I couldn't get my prime shit in without you. But so I want to talk a little bit about herping again. Have you ever been like actually flown to a place to do any herping, or have you always kind of been like within a driving distance guy?
No, driving distance. Yeah. I was the herp guy when I was in the Army, though. Everyone came running to me whenever they found something.
Okay, that's tight. Did you ever serve at Fort Leonard Wood?
Leonard Wood, yeah, oh yeah. Did basic there.
Yeah.
I was there during the winter, though.
All right, well, it's not that bad in the winter. It snows like maybe once a month if you're lucky.
It snowed on us.
Okay, well, I think everything's changed now because there's tornadoes in that area now where there wasn't tornadoes for like 60 years prior. But,
right.
So I think like Fort Leonard Wood off the 44 is like exit like 161, I want to say. I lived off of 154. So,
okay.
I lived in Mark Twain National Forest right behind the base. Some of the areas where I go canoeing, there'd be signs, don't go past this point. Every once in a while, I'd see like a bunch of guys in camo in the woods when it was raining, fucking around. We get the helicopters a lot too, but whenever I bring up Fort Leonard Wood to people, they always laugh and say how awful it is. I think it's blissful out there, man. I love the area.
Yeah. I liked it there. I liked it there.
If you don't need like some crazy social life or a target, it's a really wonderful place to live.
Right.
You can't live without, bars and things like that because there's not a lot of bars in Missouri, man. I don't know what it is about the Midwest, but in Buffalo, New York, there are bars everywhere. Not many bars in the Midwest.
I was only at Leonard Wood for 4 months though, too.
4 months.
I left there, went to I was down in Fort Polk, Louisiana. Okay. That was exciting down there. That's where all the snakes were at.
If you tried a little harder, man, there's quite a few milk snakes out by the
Oh, I bet.
I never flipped them at first. A lot of cottonmouths there too, in those beautiful crystal clear waters. Cottonmouths everywhere.
Cool.
But I don't know what to. You know, the problem is, I know you're extremely knowledgeable about this, and I don't know where to guide you right now. Like, what like, you know, what are some like recent conversations you had? Like maybe something like a little something you learned in the hobby that you didn't know before. Like, you got to be learning some shit occasionally.
Oh yeah. Dude, my ears are always open for new stuff. I don't know. I heard a really cool tip from Jason Nelson. They were talking about, escape snakes and whatnot. And I'm one of the old school guys. I've got glue traps down or tape traps and stuff like that.
Thought you were gonna say that.
And he was saying he does that too, but he also puts out pieces of PVC pipe against all his walls. So a lot of times he finds 80% of them in those PVC pipes. And I was like, you know what? That's a damn good idea.
Yeah, it's probably a little easier too. Does he put a cap on one end, or is it just straight?
Yeah, I think so. Or he does that, or jams, the other end up against the other side of the wall.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's pretty genius. It seems like a no-brainer, but that seems like a pretty good idea, actually. It's been a minute. When I lose a colubrid, I just assume it's gone forever, especially if it's a young one. Yeah, I don't want to.
Everybody always asks how many you've lost, and I was like, I have no idea. But I can tell you this: I had a Korean rat that was 2.5 blocks down the street.
Okay,
I've had that. That was about 2 years ago. I had a hatchling corn get out of my snake room, and it was in the middle of winter when it got out, and I'm like, dude, if you get out of my snake room, you're doomed. Nope. He proved me wrong there too. It was like that next August, I was out there in my yard flipping 10 that I got out there, and sure shit, there's that corn snake with a meal in it.
Yeah, I had a buddy lost one of his Texas indigos, and I think it was like 2 or 3 months later. This was a northern state. There was some plywood on the side of his building. He went out there and he said the thing was out there and it was fat as fuck. Like it had been eaten. So, and I saw a post, I think only about a month or two ago on Facebook. Was it something like somebody lost their Kenyan sand boa and they found in the yard while like a California king was eating it or some shit? I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was something like somebody lost their Kenyan and California king was chowing it down, which I thought was pretty wild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I might. I was supposed to go out to California for the Pomona show. It's gonna be a short trip. I was lucky enough to get a little bit of herping in last time. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get any in, but I really want to do some road cruising. I've always wanted to see a rosy boa in the wild.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple guys that know a couple cruising spots. I'm sure there's all kinds of cruising spots all around California for them. But that's always been a bucket list. Is that a species you've ever messed with?
The rosy boas?
No. Yeah. No.
I've thought about it just because I like the size of them.
It's a cool size animal.
Yeah.
The community's a little anal about certain things. You got to be careful about your crosses. I noticed you have what are you working with? The gray bandits. Yep. You do a lot with the gray bandits, or just a couple projects?
Just a couple progs. I've got 2.2. I've got my main group's 1.2, and they're black gaps. And then my other one's just a hobby, really, really thick band, hobby gray band. That's what you refer to it.
Yep. A couple guys I've seen in the hobby working with those. Of course, you see a lot of them when you get into like Texas. You'll see vendors down there with them outside of Texas area. Another species you think you'd see more in the hobby, because there was a point where I thought they were a lot more prevalent, and now maybe I'm not paying enough attention. I don't think it's rare if I see a nice gray bandit or a gray bandit at all at a show. Like, just not at all.
Right. Occasionally. I know who had some really nice, Matt Turner had some really awesome river roads at Tinley past couple of times. And I about got, but they're almost patternless. Just strict silver looking snake. And I was like, oh man, them things are cool.
It's pretty tight. I'll make time to go look at his table next time. So early days of show vending. Were you doing stuff in the 90s when it came to vending, or was it more?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pretty heavily.
Yep. No, dude. We only had. It wasn't anything like it is now. I mean, literally, we had the Streamwood, the Lee Watson show. That was once a month,
Yeah.
and that was a pretty fun show, though. That was like the old Wild Wild West days.
Yeah.
You never knew what you could find out in the parking lot, or the parking lot, the pasture where you parked at.
Yeah. A lot of those older venues, especially like in Ohio, also like we've definitely upgraded the buildings that we keep our cellar reptiles in.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, I did a Pennsylvania show. I can't remember what city it was, but it was somewhere probably between like 2007 and 2010, and it was a dirt floor. I mean, it was dirt ass building, and no size. I don't even know what that was. A chicken coop. I don't even know what the fuck we were standing in, but I think the Springfield show here ran into an issue one time where they couldn't get in the building because of construction, and I think they had in like a side building that was kind of like. I think it was like for cattle. Pretty sure.
Oh yeah.
A year or two ago.
The Lee Watson show was in an old horse barn.
Okay.
There was two horse barns back to back, and then you literally parked in the pasture. And then if it was raining, they had the tractor out there to pull everybody out because you was covered in mud.
That's pretty fucking crazy, man. Yeah, we've definitely come a long way in the hobby. I'm sure there's at least one show out there still being on a dirt floor, but they're very rare now. Hard to find. Let me know if you find
them. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Trying to think. So what else? So moving forward, you ever have an itch to get into like? Do you got a new species like on the back burner you'd like to start working with? Or are you pretty content with your collection right now?
Pretty content with my collection. I mentioned earlier I'm looking at the Mad Hogs.
Yeah,
I've always liked those.
Did Adler just have some born in house?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a common species to see captive bred in the United States. I've heard of grand females coming in, but I don't know of a lot of breeders.
Yeah, they're just kind of starting now. I know Kayla Martin out in California. I think she's done it. I know of two others too. I can't think of their names right now.
Yeah, what was I going to say? I'm losing all train of thought now. I'm trying to think too hard, man. I usually don't have to think this fucking hard about anything. I don't know what the deal is. MJ's gonna.
I'm always thinking about garters too. I love Santa Cruz garters, and then the Chapala garters. I just haven't pulled the trigger on those.
I think you mean to call them chalupas. Yeah, I think you're mispronouncing.
All right.
But no, let's talk garters for a minute. So I've always liked the garter stuff. I do see garter snakes pop up in the wild in a lot of the different not collecting pages, but like North American breeder page. I see at least one mutation a year. I've seen some albinos pop up in Michigan over the years. A real deep dark phase of albino, like a reddish. There was the Scaleless project. I know that's a little more mainstream now. I'm sure it's a love-hate relationship, but I've never really been bothered by a Scaleless project until I worked with ball pythons. Everyone before that was just fine. Ball pythons really ruined it for everybody.
Right.
You do scales corn snakes, or you stay away from it? You don't like it, do you? You not like it.
Well, that's a touchy subject.
Oh, okay. No, I do understand. I understand.
No, we can talk all about that. I was all in with the scaleless corns. I was one of the funny thing about it though. I was all when they first came out. When I first saw them, I was like one of those. Oh no, snakes gotta have scales. They're just not. That's not right. That's just my mentality. And I saw one in person. And I'm like, man, you cannot deny that.
Yeah.
Just how pretty that thing is.
Colors pop. Something happened. I don't know what happened exactly, but I had an Annery male, scaleless, and I bred them.
Those are the best ones.
They are the best. The best. So I bred it to some of the nice salmon snow stuff, coral ghost stuff. And some reason when I breed my scaleless male back to the hets that I produced in-house, I have not made a fucking scaleless corn snake yet. And this is my third season running my same male through the same hets. And I bet you I don't fucking make one this year. I don't know what's going on, but I just can't do it. I can't do it, man. And I don't want to go buy a bunch.
That's funny that you said that, because I've had, well, before mine all got taken away, I had a pair of hets for 2 years, put out 3 clutches, and I didn't produce a single scaleless animal out of those either. And I damn well know they were a het because I produced them.
Yeah. I've got visual breeding my hets, and I still can't make one of these animals. Like, and again, I just don't know what's going on. It's the silliest shit ever, and the females are probably bigger than most of my other corn snakes in my collection for some reason. And yeah, I get a lot of slugs too. Like, have you ever heard of like scaleless males being bad breeders?
No, not really. I mean, not so much now.
Yeah.
When they first started, when they first started, they kind of were. I've heard that.
Okay.
But not anymore.
Yeah, I think I remember. I know Brian Barczyk was early on in getting a bunch of those animals in, and Will Banks was another guy pretty early on with that. I remember at Tinley he would always bring a lot out when he was heavily into them. Like you said, man, makes the color pop. The palmetto one was absolutely beautiful. Of course, it was gonna be beautiful. I haven't really seen a scaleless project I haven't liked yet, and scaleless corn snakes do very well. They don't rub their faces. They eat very well. They shed very well. Like,
Yeah,
I've never really.
I never had a problem. I never had the only issues I ever had were with hatchlings, and you'd have to watch them when you knew they were going into a shed cycle, because that shed would come off and it'd roll down like a sock, and then it would tighten down on them.
Did it tighten down
for whatever reasons? Well, just on the hatchlings.
Okay, interesting. So in ball pythons, same exact thing. It would get down to about their chest, and it would stop, and it would be fucking tight. Like when you break it free, you see like a line all the way around the snake. It got so tight. And I always said that's because no belly scoots. There's no like release in the shed. It's just like this going all the way down the animal. So of course it's going to get tighter.
Right.
I don't know why that'd be with the babies, because they got the belly scoots.
Right. It was just with the hatchlings. Never with any adults I ever had.
Interesting. So have you seen the scaleless garter snakes?
I have.
Hey, they do look a little dopey. I will put that, like, especially as adults. As babies, they look right. As adults, they look a little dopey. Still love the shit out of them. And I know they've been breeding them in some other stuff. I saw a couple clutches post this year of outbreeding. I would be curious what that market does on an animal like that, because I've never really seen a super expensive garter snake combination. I want to say about anything you can do is probably under $2,500. I think 25 is probably that like white-sided project. I think that's a plains. But other than that, I've seen pretty cheap ones. What do you think you can go to market at with the scaleless garter snake?
Oh, I had no clue, dude. I couldn't even tell you prices of garter snakes right now myself. I mean,
I pay attention to too much stuff. I don't know why. I always like to see what markets are doing. I like to see the fluctuations in markets. I like to see the price go way up, and then I won't buy them anymore because I just can't justify it anymore. They'll probably never come back down on a lot of stuff too. Like some of these price points that have come back up, like black milks were always the one, because I always said so many black milks were exported. It brought the price up, but still to this day, people are getting $200 on black milks. Black kings also. No, black milks are a lot more. The black kings are $200.
Right.
Where do the black milks go for? Have you seen those available lately?
They're at $350, $400.
Okay.
And they've
them better.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the Ohio shows back in the day?
No, never made it that far east.
Okay. Too far?
Yeah.
Stayed over.
Yeah.
That's
I
fair.
think all those shows are like about 7 hours for me.
Well, Columbus one used to be a real big deal back in the day. I feel around
Right,
time
right.
Shot Show, like that was the other big one up north. I'm always surprised to hear some of the vendors' names that would do those shows back in the day. But like you said, there just wasn't any shows to do.
Right. You only had, there was a handful of shows.
Like, I know you like your Colubrids, but like, did you ever get the itch to get into like albino Burmese pythons back in the days when that was hitting pretty heavy?
Oh, we didn't. Well, back in the day, I didn't have the money for an albino Burmese back in those days. We had a big Burmese that we always did talks and stuff with all the time. And then he finally passed away, and I was like, nah, I'm done with the big snakes.
Okay, I only kept Burms for like months, like 2002 for months. Love hate, man.
I know.
Them. I love what's going on with them now. I'm loving all the colors. I hate the size. And
Size.
I do understand you could probably manage them a little bit better than they are from what I've been hearing. I was talking to Matt Bowers about that. We brought it up last week. But man, everything I remember with Burns was just dumb people. No offense to people, but like very inexperienced people. Everybody who bought a Burn back then, I feel like they just thought when it got too big, they take it to like the zoo and the zoo would want it. Like somebody's gonna want this giant animal, and like I think a lot of Burns got thrown to the wayside because of it.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I had babies for a little while, and they just didn't do it for me. I think somebody came over and liked them more than I did, and they just took them off my hands. But that might be a species later on. I might dabble in like a 1.2 for fun, but I like my boas. I don't want to get too much bigger than a boa constrictor.
Right.
Yeah, but you were talking boas. So when you did boas, were you working mutations back then or localities?
Yeah, we're just making baby boas.
Just making Colombians, pretty basic. Just
yep,
boas.
Whatever was coming in the pet trade.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's funny because we had some. I look back now at some of the old pictures and stuff I had, and the thing was the only, let's see, call albinos came out, sharp albinos were out. Other than that, that was about it. I think there might have been an anery back then.
Yeah,
anery. Aztecs were just starting to come into. All the morphs weren't out there. I mean, not at all. We had one. I remember. I think back now, and I'm pretty sure it was probably like a hypo.
Okay.
It had just very little black in that thing.
Well, you probably heard like a lot of the hypos came from like Panamania.
Yeah.
And it sounds like both lines of them, the what is it? The salmons and the orange tails, they think are both, of course, just Panamanians with different influence of Colombian in them. I know there's been hypos found. Of course, the Sonoran Desert bow, you got hypos. There is a pure Colombian hypo. I actually talked to a customer that just tracked down some old stock of pure Colombians and picked them up, which I thought was kind of neat.
Nice.
But no, other than that, boas, like, there was kind of like a surge of mutations. Like you said, it was the anery, the albino. Then I think it trickled jungles. I think arabesque came out around then. Then
right, I remember arabesques.
Yeah, and for arabesque being an old school gene, you don't see a lot of those around anymore either. I always heard issues with females breeding. I'm not aware of that. I've had females give me litters. I've heard that sometimes getting multiple litters out of them is a challenge, but I also think that was also when we had our boas like 10, 20 pounds. We were probably just killing them. So after that litter, they were unable to have another litter. But no, the boa stuff, you know me, man. I love my boas. If it's other than colubrids, I think skinks are the only thing I don't know whether or not I want to put more money into right now. I love my skink colony, but I haven't had like an amazing breeding year in a couple years. I think I only have I think we produced like 50 babies this year, and I really could be producing like 200 or 250 until I have another big year. Like, I don't know if I'm going to invest in all these new mutations that are now available. I'm tempted. I want them, but I gotta get this shit dialed in a little bit better before I go out and start spending money on that. I think I'll probably put my money in other stuff.
Right.
So there's really not a starter colubrid that you would ever recommend for anybody because a lot of them are pretty basic, as in they're almost equally easy to breed outside of cannibalism and kings.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't beat a corn snake. I mean, you really can't hardly kill one unless you just don't do anything with it.
No.
If you're wanting something that you don't really want to handle a whole lot or anything like that, you can go with like one of the Asian rat species, like your bamboo rats or something like that. Because hell, you don't even need heat for those. You can just keep them at room temps or wherever your house is.
Yeah. Asian rat snakes, always like them also.
Yeah.
They're big, but they're not as big as I think they should be. But I think that's just lack of availability.
Right. Yeah. So I work with Russians and I got Japanese. And then I've got my bamboo racers.
Okay, I like the bamboos. Is the Japanese, are those the green ones?
They are.
All right.
The mainland, your mainlands are more of a olive, dark green, and then you get your Kunasur Island and some other island forms like that. And then you're getting into the more turquoise, bluish looking animals. And they're smaller than too.
When did Asian rat snakes hit the hobby?
Probably back. I mean, they've always been here. For a lot of the old time breeders were pulling them out of the food market over there. They were getting a lot of them, stuff like that. So late 80s, early 90s for sure. Mid 2000s, they started becoming pretty popular.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I figured they've been around for a while. I remember hearing about a couple reasonably good-sized collections out there, people collecting them. Again, Chad Brown was collecting them for a while there. I think he flew over there and talked to some of the bigger breeders. Have you imported any animals, or have you typically just bought your animals in the United States?
No, all in the U.S., yeah.
Okay.
I just about pulled some in from Canada last year and then backed out. I was just like, didn't do it.
Yeah. No, I had a guy in Hong Kong that used to buy a lot from me, and he had these striped albino, like a wide stripe albino corn snake. And I can't remember what he had the name on it. I'll look those up and send you the pictures afterwards. Honestly, really amazing. I think he wanted like $2,500 a pop on, to be honest. Like, I think it was a pretty high penny, but when you look at him, I'm sure you're gonna like him. I haven't seen him since. So, I can tell you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I haven't seen that.
All right. Well, again,
I've seen some wide striped corns in the past. I didn't see any albinos or anything like that, but that's kind of a thing. There's some wide. Yeah, I think they're referred to as wide striped. So it probably has to stem from whoever you're talking about, I'd imagine.
Could be. The problem is just because it's in Hong Kong, it probably came from another country, got imported in there, and didn't necessarily pop up in their groups.
Right.
I think that is one of the bummers. Pros and cons about the Asian market. The Asian market keeps us alive, but son of a bitch, they get a lot of things that I want to stay here that I want to buy for myself.
Yeah.
Even me for like the longest time, man, like, up until just a couple of years ago, I never had to sell snakes in the United States. Like, I had a couple of guys overseas that would just buy every baby I ever produced. And I loved that. But then when I had to start selling them here, people didn't even know I had them. They thought it was peculiar they were even on my table. A lot of people didn't even think they were my animals. I was just flipping stuff. The problem of being quiet about what you work with, when you have something on your table they're not used to, they get a little put off by it, I guess is the way to put it. Your normal customer.
Yeah. I can see that, but yeah.
But that was another project, orchids, like I said, I wouldn't mind starting to create some kind of group for that in the future. If I can go after this wide stripe thing, I probably want to do that. Other than that, man, I don't really know. Because like I said, I love the candy canes. I just don't think they're worth enough. What does a candy cane cost nowadays?
You're talking to the wrong guy about prices. It's like I make a mad dash to Morph Market and look at prices, and it's like, oh, okay, there we go. I don't know. You can get like it all depends on it's like anything else, how well it looks, I guess. The more white, you're higher price, 100, 150 probably.
All right, not terrible.
Yeah.
You're talking about that PVC trick on a loose animal, which I always love those kind of things when people figure it out in the hobby. You got any of your own little tricks of the trade you figured out over the years?
Oh, probably. I have to go digging in this brain for it though. Just a refrigerator trick with a lot of pyros and gray bands and stuff, like even corn snakes a lot of times.
What's the refrigerator trick? Are we just talking about cooling in a refrigerator?
Yep, just giving them a brumation first. And I think the thing is, a lot of these animals hatch like in the fall time. They don't have enough time to get a meal in them. They just head straight to a hibernaculum someplace first.
Yep. I think you're right on that. But I think in the hobby, you want to get a meeting and you want to get them sold. So the idea of ruminating an animal after it's produced, a lot of people probably aren't really a big fan of or didn't really think about it for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think that Applegate taught me that too, I think.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that Dawn dish soap with pinky mice? Give them a little scrub for a couple feeders?
Yes, I have. I've used I'm not exclusive to Dawn, a regular hand soap. And I'll fall, like if I've got one that's not eating like that or something like that, I'll just wash it in my hand while it's warming up in hot water. And it's done the trick a few times. Washing this, I don't know, who knows what goes on there. How about taking snakes for a ride too to get them to eat? I've done that too. Pack them up in their deli cups and take them for a ride.
Yeah.
I've learned that the hard way a few times with a couple of Japanese rat snakes. I'd had them already sold, and everyone gets a little antsy to get them and stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll take some money off if you want me to send it to you. And now you can get them to feed. Okay, it'll do it. And it gets there and it eats the day they get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done that a few times.
Well, it's nice when it works out. Yeah, the driving animals around the car to get them to stimulate something, whether it's breeding or anything else.
Yeah.
I think I believe a little bit, but at the same time, if there's not follicle development, you give this thing a drive all you want, man. And back then when people learned that trick, they didn't know where the follicles were in their animals. So I believe it and don't believe it. I could try it, man. I don't know if I'm at that point of life right now to just be – I don't know if that's laziness to not do it if you think it's going to work, but I did pair a bunch of animals up this past week, and I haven't really got any locks yet between some boa constrictors and some ball pythons, but the follicle development's there. They're just not locking. There's a few locking. It's not completely, but like usually when a female boa is at like 12 to 20 millimeters, the male's all about it, like all over almost immediately. He's a virgin male. He's cuddling a little bit, but he's not really, his tail's not in the right area. He doesn't really know what the fuck he's doing yet, might be the problem. But he's old enough, and he's ready to go. But, no, yeah, man, I don't think I would ever drive an animal around a car to get it to breed. I'll be honest with you. I think I'm too lazy for that. I think there's a lot of shit I'll do, but I don't think I'd ever take a car ride with a snake just to hope. But
I took a clutch of corns. I had to go FedEx anyways, and that's about 10 miles from my house. And I was like, well, might as well do it.
yeah,
Threw everybody in some deli cups, threw them on the floor of the car. Came back, and I think I took 6 of them fed who hadn't fed prior. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
So you being FedEx ground, like, there's never any animal shipments going through your facility. So you don't get any of the cool snake broke out. Let's give Eric a call so he can come over here and help us out.
Nope. The only thing that trying to think, we'd get the insects there on occasion come through. We get a lot of empty cages, like a lot of the zoos and stuff we had like a whole bunch of these great big like dog crates that all had wolves in them from one zoo going to, I forget where they were going.
Oh,
That was pretty cool.
they ship
A lot
those
of bull semen.
Oh, what was that last thing you said?
I said we had a lot of bull semen go through.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard there's a great market for that. I I get when I drop off at the FedEx over by the military base, they're always dropping off blood and organs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very common. There'll be somebody in full fatigue and they'll have a box of blood. I think I don't know what that's about, honestly. I don't ask questions. I should probably ask questions. But I thought
It would be confidential.
Yeah, it could. It really could. I usually, I'm going to ask next time because people do ask me about the snakes when I'm in there, and I'm always kind of reluctant to over talk about what I do. I assume it freaks most people out, and the more country you live, the less normal it is. We had the FedEx guy come to pick up at our facility for the first time since we moved here in January. Because usually I just don't want people to know, but now word's getting around, and my town's small enough that when one guy knows, the whole fucking town knows.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Damage is done. But the one cool thing when he came in to pick up the packages, he's like, "Oh, I just came from the fish place." There's a spot down the road from there where I noticed there was all these like perfectly square ponds on this property. Apparently, they're breeding fish for the fish trade, and he's picking up over 100 packages a week from this place. So now I kind of want to become friends with these people because I find that very fascinating, and I want to know what's going over there. But I road cruise a lot at night just because I've got a lot of really good dirt roads over here. They don't produce yet, but they're really good dirt roads. And I have driven past that place once or twice and made the assumption what it was. But I got to stalk it a little better. I'm going to have to look at the address on the box next time FedEx comes by and just maybe drive past the guy's house a couple times and, wait till I see him outside and then awkwardly pull over and wave my hand maybe. I don't know. That's not beneath me. I'm sure he'll be happy when I stop my car to talk about his operation in his backyard. But, yeah, I might do it. We'll see. Trying to think of any other like weird shit that I've heard over the years that has just been like sounds really bizarre. I'm always cannibalization, or when a snake eats a snake is always kind of a big surprising thing for me. Like especially when it's a species that shouldn't do it. I do understand that hognose can cannibalize a little bit, but when I used to hang out with Junior a lot, and I was at his facility a lot. If there was a hognose born with like a kink, it would almost always be cannibalized by one of the other hognose. So I don't know if that's just like Mother Nature knowing to take out this like weak ass animal, but something about that erratic movement really made those little guys want to eat that thing.
Yeah, I've wondered about that too. There's like you said, there's some type of plan in there somewhere.
Yeah, corn snakes. Have you ever had that with baby corn snakes?
Eat each other? No, never.
Never even try?
Nope. I've had issues where one starts on a mouse and then the other one takes the back end. Then you get the whole Lady and the Tramp thing going on.
Yeah, cohabitating 20 animals in the same cage. That'll happen. I get it. But well, have you noticed with babies that they're more inclined to eat when you have them in groups?
You know what? I haven't. I've seen that a few times and heard about it, and I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like with my corns and stuff. I don't have lots and lots that don't want to eat, and generally, my first go-to is always something live, and we'll try that a few times. That's like 95% of the time works.
You do it your own Levinson house?
No, I work part-time for the Reptile Bistro. That's our rodent place here in the Quad City area. So they hook me up there when I'm over there.
Good resource to have, man.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I've been talking to a lot of mouse breeders lately, and they said that their orders have been surging because people are really freaked out about this whole Chinese mouse thing now.
Yeah.
And, I've been hearing prices have been getting up a little bit, and I hear a lot of suppliers are a little low right now. We do what we need in house. We could probably be better about our breeding, but we literally run the entire colony on like 2 $8 bags of chicken pellet and 2 $8 bags of hen scratch, and that's enough to feed 450 females and however many males we have out there per week. So at about $40 of food going into them every week, our production's okay. When it's bad, I don't really stress out about it. But it's more than enough for what we need for our colonies.
Right.
You guys, I'm assuming you guys probably use Missouri and more of the mainstream stuff.
Yeah. What is that stuff? Callenbach?
Callenbach?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a bag of stuff up there. I bring all the paper towel tubes home in those bags. I use those are my hides for all my baby corns.
Saw your setup where you're showing the water dish with at least like 4 to 6 of those in there. I used to hold them all back, man, but as many paper towels as I go through, it's never enough. Like never close to enough. What was I gonna say about that? Bring me back. What were we just talking about?
The food.
The food thing. Oh yeah, we're talking about mice and breeding. I know you're looking at me crazy when I bring up this like $40 a feed and chicken pellet and stuff, but like it honestly really works very well. And I have a rat breeder in the state that gets the company that makes the chicken pellet to make a cattle cube. And I want to say he's paying like $14 a bag for chicken pellet in a cattle cube. And he's been breeding his rats on it for years, and they thrive.
Nice.
So I found a few tricks, and back when I did African softers too, strictly chicken pellet, and they killed it, man. They were awesome on chicken pellet. Like I said, I always try to find cheaper ways of doing it because I've always had to do it in such a large scale, and I got to find ways to cut corners. I did it too with rats, where like I fed one group of rats Missouri and the other group chicken pellet, and they gained as much weight on chicken pellet as they did on Missouri. Not to shit on Missouri. I don't know if I would have my breeder rats. Well, no, I would, because I bought that cattle cube of chicken pellet. Don't underestimate chicken pellet if you can get it from somewhere that's not Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply, it's like $20 a bag. At that point, it's probably not even worth it. But if you get like a farm store, man, like a true farm store where it's like a brown bag with just like egg pellets stamped on it, you know, it really saves you a lot of money on your operation. Yeah.
I can see that.
But how about this? We're going to keep this at 2 hours tonight just because I got to wake up in 4 hours to drive to a show because I'm not willing to drive out there tonight. And I got to go finish packing, to be honest with you. A send-off, man. You know what? You can send off however you want, man. Do you want to do a plug? Do you want to give a little advice? What's an Eric thing? I'll let you pick. This is my fault for not having something. Yeah.
No, you're all right. I mean, everybody can find me on Facebook. That's my main thing. I'm on Instagram too. Morph Market, Find Your Reptile, and Show Me Marketplace.
Okay. I'm glad you're on Morph Market. I know we talked about that one time, but we won't talk about that now. But
you let me back on.
Yeah, it's all the best. Well, Eric, I do appreciate it, man. I'll be honest. I'm gonna really do. I want to put a big effort into Clubrid Fest, and I know when I'm there, I definitely want to do a sit down. I'm probably gonna want to try to record something while I'm there, and maybe cycle through some people.
Absolutely, man.
I promise you better energy. I feel like I didn't bring the right energy tonight. You watch me a lot. I feel like I could have done a little better. I feel a little bad, honestly. I say this occasionally.
You're all right. You gotta keep me on the rail, anyways.
No, that's fair. But honestly, like I said, when we chatted, when I met you in person, man, really enjoyed the talk. You know, it was really great having you set up across from me. Like I said, I love looking at your Pyros from across the way the whole weekend. You know, a little bit of a slow show, I remember. I remember it was a dog shit show. We probably should have had more time to talk. But no, like I said, I love meeting people at the shows. I love having a good conversation there and then having this in the future. So I appreciate you making time for me.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, until Colubrids Fest, man, I appreciate it. And like I said, guys, like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.